All right, so we'll get started here briefly. Um, I'd just like to say hello and thank you for being with us early on a Saturday, depending on where you are, of course. A lot of people have said this is rather early for them. Some people are saying this is like 4 or 5 o'clock their time. And so thank you wherever you are, whatever time this is for you. Thank you for being with us. Four p.m. in Cape Town. Lovely. I'm in Austin, Texas, and right after 8 o'clock for me. Hello, Kevin. All right, I think we've worked out the technical difficulties and we'll get started here, and I'll make sure you leave on time for your next session. It said a rising tide raises all boats. You might be familiar with the Sean Lemass quote. It was made popular by JFK. We know this quote well for economics and in politics. I'd like to suggest that we know this for writing as well, because as a rising tide lifts all boats, we know this is true unless you're anchored in place. And what we know about Medium, really all social platforms. If you're on Medium, will you drop into the chat that you're there? It'll give me a kind of a gauge to know how broad to go so that we're widely applicable to all, or that we're on Medium. Congratulations, Carrie, 1K followers. Fantastic. Love seeing that a lot of people are on Medium. Fantastic. We know that Medium changes often. So if you are anchored in place, you might drown. We know we have to stay flexible, and as that tide changes, we have to ride with it. I like to say that Medium is always in beta. Do we have any gamers in the room? Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Okay, I don't personally game much myself, but my kids do. And they like to play Fortnite. So as you see, depending on what version you have, it says that Fortnite is a beta version. Medium acts like it's always in beta. Many of us know here in the fourth quarter, we got some fantastic new rollouts. And really, we didn't get much notice, right? We just had to adapt. So we know that Medium is always in beta, and we have to stay flexible to that. We also have some basics that I think are true to all social platforms, whether you're on Medium or not. Specifically to Medium, we're going to very quickly cover the bare basics. We're going to talk about quality, the quality of your writing, and how you connect. What are some of your favorite ways to engage on the platform? Feel free to use that chat. Jessica says the comments section. Jason likes claps. Well, very quickly, you've hit some of the basics there. Reading, read time, right? We get compensated by how often and how much time people spend reading our piece. But your profile is also a really important basic that I think a lot of people overlook some potential there. If you haven't adjusted in a way that is both professional and personal, you might want to revisit that quickly. Your profile is, of course, a great way to connect. I know some people who are making a full-time income here, and they put that in their profile. If you're making a full-time income here, might be something to consider. But as you're reading, engaging, and highlighting, you've got the basics. Beyond that, what do you think the next most important engagement is on the platform? Brienne says following. I like that for a couple of reasons. Your followers, your number of followers, supposedly has something to do with the number of people who are reading and seeing your piece. We know this much to be true. But I also see some people with lower followers in numbers who are making an extraordinary income. So, oh, hello, top writer tags. And Angeisha in the house. Highlights, Jessica, yes, good engagement. I would say most people have subscribed to white space and short paragraphs. I don't think we have many people holding out that you don't need to break up large chunks of text. And just some quick stats to that point. 1 year ago, upward of 75% of usage is on mobile. Worldwide, we have 4.8 billion users of the internet. So we have a lot of content coming at us all the time. And if you want to say those stats might be a little bit skewed over the last year, I would say that's valid, right? Everything has been skewed over the last year. But I would suggest that as we're here in this space, many of us working from home, we're also here doing this and scrolling, right? So I would say over the last year, probably those stats are still true. So we know that we need white space, and we also need quality beyond that. What's the most important thing that you write in your story? The very most important thing. The intro. The headline. Brienne hit it. And I'm going to hit that CTA too, because that's important. I see a lot of writers still missing it. The quality to your piece has to start with that headline, in my opinion. And I'm going to drop into the chat this link for headline analyzers. Keep that handy if you will. We are going to jump over and analyze a headline or two. So if you haven't brought a headline with you, please think ahead for a few moments that we're going to analyze a headline. Your headline has to be powerful. And if your reader isn't engaged in the headline, they're probably not going to read anything that follows. If you're not using a headline analyzer, I would suggest that you do, at least until you get really comfortable writing your headlines. And honestly, I still use one. I know some of the really big writers who practice with a headline analyzer every day. I recommend that. And you see how your headlines perform. That list has the top headline analyzers for 2021. And the top 5 are ones that I'm familiar with. CoSchedule there at number 1, Share Through, AMI headline. One of my favorites, honestly, for the emotional aspect. It has a 3-part that you're analyzing: intellectual, emotional, and spiritual to come up with a score that performs for a really broad audience. Take a look at those headline analyzers, and I would find 1 or 2 to get really comfortable with. Lorenta is asking, what score is fitting? Great question, because all of these headline analyzers are a little different. CoSchedule is on a 100 points basis, so like a grading scale, 100% is fantastic. That one, personally, it will go green at 70, so you've got a pretty good title there. Honestly, if I'm using that one, I aim for 80, and I keep working my headline until I hit 80%. The AMI headline, and these are my 2 favorites right here, the ones I personally use. AMI headline, you want to go for between 30 and 40%. And when you hit that, you can really rest with a lot of comfort that you have an exceptional headline. So if we go to CoSchedule, it doesn't look like I can screen share, although we had word that we could. That's okay. We're working through the technical difficulties this morning, and we're all going to be better for it. We're still going to have some great takeaways. CoSchedule is where I popped over briefly, and the headline I put in is college educated people are some of the smartest. And we can have the variation there that I've put in previously. College educated people are some of the smartest people I know. The difference there, just 1 point, but the emotional impact when I balanced this over to the other headline analyzer was a really big emotional impact for broader appeal. So if I had to choose between these 2, I would choose the one that scored less on CoSchedule because of the greater impact that I can reach people emotionally. Because as we connect emotionally, we read more stories, don't you think? I do. Does someone have a title we'd like to throw into that analyzer to get a score? Depending on your genre, poets like a really straightforward headline. But nonfiction pieces, actually stories, most other stories I would say have an emotional impact. Let's go with the day I played football. %69. It would go green without much tweaking at all. What I learned the day I played football. 72%. I would keep working that until it hit 80%. I think headlines are that important. How I successfully raised your children bilingually. What a fantastic story. I want to read it. I hope you write it. I am popping that into co-schedule. 63. I think that the word bilingually there isn't being scored as high as it would be scored in readers' minds. So if you're using an analyzer, it's important to lean with a grain of salt. Sometimes you can have an excellent performing headline, and this is a starting place. Sometimes you have to trust your intuition there, because I think this headline would really be exceptional. So do keep that in mind. After your headline, my children, yes, I see that. No problem there, Brenda, and thank you. After your headline, what comes next? What's most important? Subhead, yes. Subtitle. And honestly, sometimes I still use the analyzer for my subtitle. Something I've noticed is that an ending thought often works well when you pull it back up into the subtitle. The introduction, yes. How do you connect quickly with your readers? Sometimes that's a personal story. If it's a personal story, you need to be succinct in that delivery. Probably no more than 200 to 300 words. And then what's very important is that you shift into how your story is useful to the reader. It's something that I see a lot of writers, some really good writers, struggling to catch. So this is super, super important that you make the shift, even in personal stories, from I to you, so that you are magically including the reader in your story. Think about those stats again for a minute. And all of the content coming at us on a daily basis. We're overwhelmed with content. And your reader's going to leave if it's all I. If you replace the I with you, you're magically connecting with your reader. And sometimes one of my favorite ways to do that is to kind of be a ping pong ball as you deliver your subpoints. A quick personal point followed by how it relates to the reader and to the reader's lives. Because I'm sorry to say it so bluntly, but readers don't care about you until you care about them. It's the difference between looking in a mirror and looking through a window. I versus you, so important. And I see a lot of people not delivering it as well as they could. So another thing we see on the platform is that we need evidence-backed thinking. The pieces that used to fall from our fingertips aren't cutting it anymore unless we can back up the point of view with evidence outbound links. So I spent some time in the guidelines again last night and found a new word creeping up through them. Yes, they do get bossy, and it's their platform to do what they want to. So we can comply to the best of our ability. But what we really are looking for, curators seem to favor evidence outbound links to support your point of view. So whatever you're presenting, back it up. Back it up with something solid. Psychology Today is one of my favorites. If you're backing it up with a quote, link out to the book, link out to the person saying the words that you're quoting. And more than linking out to them, link out to where they've used the quote if you can. So I see that we're starting to wind up on time here. And I want to make sure you get to your next session on time. But I do want to quickly revisit what we have to do at the end. I promised you I'd talk about that CTA, and some of you had questions. The CTA is your call to action, and you need to have a CTA at the end of every piece. What do you want your readers to consider? What do you want them to think about? What do you want them to do next? And that's something that you need to do in every piece. As you get to the bottom, you may be reiterating some of the points that you've delivered throughout your story. I would say more than a synopsis, continue to be original in that verbiage. So if you've introduced it as a point, say it differently as you wind up in the bottom and lead to your CTA. We do have a couple minutes here for any questions, and hopefully you've gotten the basics, the quality, how important the headline is, and some common things across the platform that you can do better. Do we have any questions? Lorenta is asking, can CoSchedule analyze the subtitle? It can. Sometimes the subtitle is equally as important as the title, but sometimes I'll just pop it in there to see how the subtitle performs. Not as often as the headline, but I still do use it. Russ, thanks for asking about publications. I would say yes, get into publications. I own Publicious, founded it, and you can get to it through my profile. I'm going to drop a link for you in the chat. Russ, I would say do a search. S-Median is a good place to look if you're not already there. It will show you the publications that are ranked, how they rank. Currently, right now, Publicious is working into the top 100, and so we're pretty proud of that. Most publications have a process, form to fill out. Fill out the form. Make sure you're a good fit for the pubs that you solicit. Fantastic. We love that, Russ. Russ just joined us a couple days ago. I see some of our other friends that are with us, and I'm so glad that we could connect like this and get personal. And I love that. Russ, just make sure you're a good fit for the pubs and make sure you visit their About page and follow their guidelines. I still think pubs are the way to go. They have more eyes. They have established eyes, and people go to them to read a particular kind of story. Some are really good at promoting their writers. We make huge efforts to do that. And publications just have an established audience. And if you're just getting started or don't have as many followers as you like, pubs have a bigger group of established eyes. I still think they're the way to go. I also think that maybe someone out there wants to be a pub owner, and we'll cover those next steps at a later time. Robert, lovely to see you. And as you're all going to your next session, I wish you the best momentum for 2021.